At the end of May '99, the facts and reality were known, but in August '98, as relegated Palace and Bolton took the field, it was the beginning of a new era for the Eagles. Venables and Goldberg had spelt out their hopes, and we were ready to start the season. But Dean Holdsworth gave Bolton the best possible start to their nationwide league season with that opening goal. Palace, though, well, they did come back well under their new management team. As Dean Austin crossed from the right-hand side, it was left to Matt Jansen to score Palace's opening goal of the new season, as Mark Goldberg was in the director's box as the new chairman to celebrate the opening goal of season 98-99. It was not too long as well before Palace actually went into the lead, into a first half lead, and that was courtesy of ex-Bolton star himself, Sasa Churchic, as he hit the back of the net against his former club. The Eagles did look set for a deserved win on the afternoon, shining as they went forward, particularly youngsters Matt Jansen and Bruce Dyer. Bruce Dyer going close, hitting the side netting with that second half effort. But Bolton did take a share of the points on the afternoon with this 90th minute equaliser from Unna Gullar-Larkson to finish Palace 2, Bolton 2. It was Worthington Cup action next in the West Country for Terry Venables' side, as we were drawn against Torquay United and had the worst possible start after just 3 minutes as Tony Badeau gave Torquay the lead on the evening in this first leg of a two-legged encounter. Palace did equalise though late on, as Sasa Churchic's corner was prodded in by Attilio Lombardo. It finished Torquay United 1, Palace 1, and both sides headed off to the second leg at Selhurst Park. Sasa Churchic there from the right wing, and Attilio Lombardo prodding the ball home after the keeper saved bravely from Bruce Dyer. But it does seem strange how the former Italian international is down on the West Country on a summer's evening, putting the ball into the back of the net in a Worthington Cup tie. But there he was to give Palace a share of the score on the evening. And Palace very nearly won it when Andy Linnigan headed against the crossbar and Bruce Dyer headed just wide there from the ball coming back off the bar. But it was not to be. And I think Palace were quite grateful in the end to come away with a 1-1 scoreline. There it is, the corner coming over, and substitute Andy Linnigan heading against the bar. And in the Torquay goal, of course, was young Matthew Gregg. 5 days later, it was a trip to the Midlands and a match against Birmingham City. And Palace in this one was soon behind once again after just 12 minutes. A cross from the left, and it was converted home by striker Dele Adebola. Past Kevin Miller in the Palace goal early on, and Adebola giving the Blues the lead. A heavy defeat this for Palace, and unfortunately they went further behind as Mark Edworthy was adjudged to have given away a penalty on the 19th minute, and indeed ex-Eagle Martin O'Connor was given the responsibility of stepping up to put the ball into the back of the net from the penalty. There it was, a little harsh some may say, but the referee judging that Mark Edworthy had tugged the shirt there and pointed to the spot and blew the whistle for ex-Eagle Martin O'Connor to step up on 90 minutes and made no mistake putting the ball low past Kevin Miller into the right hand of the net. So 2-0 down there. Palace always trying to fight back in the match. It was always difficult, but they kept going, and they did push forward at times in the first half, and Sasa Churchic went the closest of Palace's first half efforts with this one, which went just over the bar just before half time. Into the second half, and Matt Jansen always looking to impress going forward, passed wide to Herman Gerardsson, who gave it back to Edworthy in the centre of the field to Andy Linnigan. And Palace were told by their management team at half time to keep pressing forward and hopefully would get back in the game. And Dean Austin's cross found Hayden Mullins there to head home into the back of the net. 2-1, bringing Palace back into the match, but he was a youth team success story and now was set to make his name in Palace's first team. Cross coming over from the right from Dean Austin, and Hayden Mullins heading high into the net past the keeper as the keeper came out there to challenge the Palace midfielder. But Palace brought themselves back into the game well, and 2-1 down, still had a fighting chance of getting some of the points on the day, but unfortunately it was not to be, as they went to a heavy defeat in the afternoon, although we're not giving up, and Matt Jansen went closest there in the closing stages to try and get an equaliser for the Eagles on the afternoon, with that shot from just outside the edge of the box and the keeper diving to his left, parrying it and then catching it at the second attempt. Birmingham, though, always a threat on their St Andrews ground. They sealed the victory late on, indeed well into injury time. The third goal did come after 93 minutes, as Palace's fate was finally sealed on the afternoon. It was crossed from the left, and there was Nicky Forster to tap the ball past Kevin Miller and indeed give a final score of Birmingham 3, Palace 1, and Palace falling to a heavy early season defeat. Next on the agenda, Oxford United at Selhurst Park, and Oxford were swept aside. Bruce Dyer getting the early goal for the Eagles, and then Italian Attilio Lombardo sealing the victory. Palace 2, Oxford 0. Then it was Torquay United were the visitors to Selhurst, because it was the second leg of the Worthington Cup. But Torquay did take Palace to extra time in this game, and it was never going to be easy for the Eagles after they had struggled in the first leg. Sasa Churchich crossing there for Lombardo to get the opening goal of the evening in the second leg tie. The cross from Churchich as he made his way into the box, and the cross was thankfully converted into the roof of the net by Attilio Lombardo. But Torquay did equalise with just 20 minutes to go. Wayne Thomas on 70 minutes for the second leg tie to really hot up and indeed to go into extra time. And as the nerves got around Selhurst Park on the evening, as Torquay were threatening to knock Palace out of the Worthington tie, they were thankful indeed to Icelandic Herman Hiradarson, who scored Palace's winner for the tie on 99 minutes. And it was certainly a nervous extra time period as Palace went forward continually, but before Herman actually did score, Palace did try and press forward, and as the corner came over, it was the Icelandic international who put the ball into the back of the net to send Palace into the next round. And from the celebrations, it looked like Herman enjoyed it as much as the supporters, and those supporters certainly went home happy as they went into the next round. Stockport County away, next on the agenda for the Eagles on their travels. But it was not a good trip to Manchester, as Stockport took the lead after 65 minutes through Chris Byrne, but Palace did try and push forward themselves. Neil Shipley always dangerous, linking up well with Attilio Lombardo here in this effort, and Lombardo's effort though tame, and Palace couldn't quite grab the early lead. Lombardo had another effort there which struck the crossbar, and Palace were certainly unlucky not to go into the half-time break with the lead. They did dominate long periods of the first half. Here's Lombardo again, a constant threat to the county defence, gets the cross over, and there is Neil Shipley with the opening goal of the afternoon. Nothing more really than Palace deserve there, and Carlo Nash, the ex-Eagle goalie there, saving well from Simon Roger from Lombardo's cross, and here's Matt Jensen going forward, and once again Carlo Nash thankful for his woodwork keeping Palace out, but it was not long before Stockport County were levelled, just 15 minutes or so after the break, and it was Chris Byrne who put that effort in from close range. On to Crewe Alexandra away, and it was Palace's first away win of the season, thanks to that effort from Matt Jansen. But then from a run of 4 games unbeaten, Palace did suffer a nightmare week, as for the first time the wheels threatened to fall off of the Selhurst Road show. Port Vale there beating Palace at Selhurst, and then it was away to Bury in the Worthington Cup. And it was the match that saw the debuts of Fanzi High and Sunji Hee, but unfortunately Palace were completely overrun on the night. Lenny John Rose opening the scoring there on 9 minutes. It was not long before Bury increased their advantage. This is the 26-minute effort from Rob Matthews. And the cruel introduction to English football for the Chinese was completed on 57 minutes when Lenny John Rose made it Bury 3, Palace 0. Barnsley away next on the agenda, and the nightmare period for the Eagles continues as Ashley Ward heads home after just 7 minutes. And Ward again there on 17 minutes, increasing the Yorkshireman's advantage. It was not until late on before the scores continued, a mix-up in the Palace defence between the keeper and Linnigan, and there was Sean McClare on 71 minutes, and the victory was sealed by Jan Fjortoff after 61 minutes. Palace 4-0 defeat at Barnsley. Questions were certainly starting to be asked there. The second leg tie against Bury, it was really a struggle for the Eagles to come back from that heavy 3-0 defeat, although Clinton Morrison gave the Eagles some early hope on the night. And an own goal from Clinton Morrison from that corner at the near post sealed Palace's exit really from the Worthington Cup, giving Bury that vital away goal. But Palace certainly didn't give up, and all credit to them, because the young side continued to go forward. Clinton Morrison here on the left-hand side put the ball across the field, and there was fancy high to give the Selhurst crowd some hope on the evening in the second leg tie. But it was not to be for Palace, and they go out of the Worthington Cup and have to concentrate on their promotion campaign. It's Sheffield United at home next up, a Sunday lunchtime kickoff live on Sky. And early on, the cameras saw Sheffield United dominate and have that early chance through Ian Hamilton. But it was to be a mixed game for Ian Hamilton. A good start there, striking the crossbar, but then he saw red as the referee showed 2 yellow cards to him in the opening period of the match, and the second one giving him the red card, and the referee giving him his marching orders from the field. An early Sunday lunch for Hamilton in this Selhurst Park encounter. But Palace did dominate long periods of the game, and this cross from Fancy High finding Bruce Dyer on the right-hand side, and there was Sasa Churchich there with the effort into the back of the net to give Palace all the points on this glorious Sunday lunchtime for the Selhurst crowd. Good work here from the Chinese international on the left-hand side. See his cross just getting under control there. Bruce Dyer pushed it to the right, and there was Sasa Churchich weaving his way into the box and striking left-foot shot into the back of the net to seal Palace's second successive victory. It was to be a third successive victory soon after, at the end of the month, as Bury were the visitors to Selhurst Park. And Paul Warhurst there equalising the opening effort from Bury. And ex-Eagle Andy Priest scored Bury's second just before half-time. 2 away goals for Stockport in that first half. Was it going to be a disappointing night for the Eagles? Well, it was not to be, because Palace actually scored their third successive victory on the trot as young Bruce Dyer put the ball into the back of the net. And then once again it was another Palace goal as Clinton Morrison latched on there to a Nicky Rizzo shot from the edge of the box to put Palace 3-2 up on the night. And a good 1-2 then set up Sasa Churchich into the box. He was brought down, and the referee gave Palace a penalty, and Lombardo stepped up to make it 4-2 on the night. A disappointing debut for Australian international Craig Foster at Portman Road, as Paul Warhurst gave away an early penalty, which Mark Venus stepped up right on half-time to put past Fraser Digby to give Town the lead going into the half-time break. The eventual 3-0 scoreline probably flattered the Portman Road side, but Tariko wasn't complaining after 82 minutes there as he put the ball into the back of the net to give Town a 2-0 lead. And the victory was sealed right on time, right on the referee's whistle on 90 minutes, as Alex Mackey scored the third goal of the afternoon. The Canaries were the next visitors to take on the Eagles at Selhurst Park, and this was a great result for Palace, but it didn't start too well. Norwich continuing their good start to the season with this opening goal from Ewan Roberts on 36 minutes. But then Palace ripped Norwich City apart, and this thunderbolt effort from Nicky Rizzo set the trend for the rest of the game. What a superb equaliser there from one of Terry Venables' Australian signings, the Aussie putting Palace on level terms. And a good combination of passes here from the Palace midfield and striking line put Matt Jansen in to put Palace into a 2-1 lead. Palace into the second half now were completely on top, and Matt Svensson there prodding the ball past the Norwich keeper to put Palace into a 3-1 lead, and as I say, completely dominating the match, and we're always going to score more goals. And look at this effort from Matt Jansen as he weaved between defenders, and his right foot shot giving the Norwich keeper no chance at all. Lombardo also wanted to get in on the act here, and a good 1-2 of passes gave him his opportunity to extend Palace's lead. On to the next game, and it's always a tough encounter. Wolverhampton Wanderers at home, and Craig Moore gave Palace a deserved early lead. A flick on there from the corner, and there was Craig Moore to put the ball into the back of the net with a firm header. Palace had a chance to extend their lead as the cross here from the right wing was actually as Lombardo put the cross in. Matt Svensson was brought down by Wolves defender. The referee had no hesitation in pointing to the spot, and Attilio Lombardo had a chance to put Palace further ahead on the night against the Midlanders, but his spot kick was saved, and Wolves were thankful to their keeper that Palace only had the one goal on the evening to date. But Lombardo was soon back in the action as his corner saw Saji Burton head home Palace's second of the evening. Steve Sedgley, though, was the threat for the Eagles as Wolves pushed their way back into the game, and his first goal on 63 minutes put Wolves well back into it, 2-1 down. But it was not long before Sasa Churchic was back in action with one of his free kicks, and the keeper didn't stand a chance, or didn't see it, one of the two, as Palace extended their lead to 3-1 on the evening. But Wolves were not dead yet, as Steve Sedgley was on hand to put in his second goal of the evening with just 4 minutes remaining. Nervous last few minutes for the Eagles, but they did hang on to seal a 3-2 victory on the night. A visit to Bradford City in the rain in October, and Clinton Morrison gave Palace the lead there against Bradford. Robbie Blake was to equalise just before half-time, but the match was abandoned at half-time due to a waterlogged pitch. No surprise there, and it was on following week to a trip up to Grimsby Town as Widrington scored for the Mariners after just 13 minutes. And a disappointing away day was completed for the Eagles on 53 minutes as Jack Lester shot home from close range to give Grimsby Town a 2-0 victory. And another sending off there for the Eagles as Fancy High sees red on Humberside. West Bromwich Albion away into November, and it's Lee Hughes who tucks away a goal in just the first minute, as he was to score in the first minute and the closing minute of the match, but not before Matt Jansen had an opportunity to bring Palace back into the game with a shot from just inside the box to bring Palace level against the men from the Hawthorns. It will always be remembered as the game that saw Sun Jihai sent off. Of course, the two Chinese internationals had their disciplinary problems over the course of the season, but there was also plenty of good football played on the pitch, and this was the second goal from West Brom on the night from Lee Hughes as he headed home from close range, as Fraser Digby and Fan Zhihai on the line had no chance at all. Palace were not dead yet, as Lombardo's effort was parried by the keeper, and there once again was defender Craig Moore to score. And Lee Hughes there was adjudged to have been tumbled over in the box by a Palace defender, and the referee taking no questions from those defenders, and he let Hughes step up to seal Palace's victory in the closing minutes of this match. Portsmouth were the next visitors to Selhurst Park, and Craig Moore was on hand once again to score, as Palace were looking confident with their home form following that recent victory against Norwich. And Palace's cause was helped further as Fitzroy Simpson clashed with Craig Moore, and the match referee had no hesitation but to show Simpson the red card for that challenge on the Scottish defender. But Portsmouth were soon back in the match on 42 minutes as John Aloisi connected from close range past Fraser Digby to bring delight to the travelling fans from the south coast. Matt Jansen, though, did increase Palace's lead in the second half. And midfielder Hayden Mullins was once again on the score sheet in a Palace shirt with that effort from just inside the box after he combined well with Matt Jansen. And the victory was completed with this long-range effort from Craig Foster. Next up was a visit of Bristol City to Selhurst Park, and it was Lee Bradbury, Palace's recent signing, who scored there against Bristol. But Anderson soon equalised for the men from the West Country with that 35th minute effort. And that superb header from Matt Jansen sealed the points against City. Cross from the right wing from Lombardo, and there was Jansen to head past the City keeper to give Palace 3 points. Swindon Town away at the county ground was one of those away matches Palace will want to forget, as once again an ex-Eagle scores against them. This time it was George Nadal. And George was involved in Swindon Town's second goal of the afternoon as the cross come over. The penalty was given. A dubious penalty, some may say, but Mark Walters was on hand to step up and give the Robins the victory against the Eagles on another desperately disappointing away defeat for Terry Venables' side. Watford at home was next up, and Graham Taylor's side took the lead after 24 minutes through Nick Wright. And it was not long before they'd increase their lead to 2, courtesy of that close-range effort from Peter Kennedy. Palace soon fought their way back into the game with that header from Matt Jansen. And was Palace on the way to a comeback as the Palace strikers finally found their feet, and Sasa Churchich was brought down in the box there, and it was up to Sasa Churchich himself to step up and bring Palace back into the game. 2-2 from the spot. And that's the way it finished. Next on the travels was up to the McAlpine Stadium against Huddersfield Town, and they were soon behind from that Marcus Stewart effort on 16 minutes. He in fact dominated the game and was soon putting Huddersfield 2 up with that effort on 22 minutes. The desperately disappointing afternoon for the Eagles was completed as he's absolutely had no trouble slotting in the third there with 82 minutes gone. The miserable afternoon was completed as Delroy Facey, right on the referee's whistle, 90 minutes, shot high past Digby to complete a miserable trip to Yorkshire. Tranmere Rovers at home, and it was Thompson on the mark 20 minutes after the restart of the second half. And in a disappointing game for the low crowd, Palace were thankful to get a draw out of the evening. A diving header from Matt Jansen late in the second half brought scores level. And Matt Jansen diving to meet the cross from the right wing to give Palace a share of the spoils. Next up, a trip to Bristol City, and it was an opening goal on their travels for the Eagles to give them the lead, but it was short-lived as Bristol City soon came back in the game, and the cross from the left was headed home by Adi Akinbaye. It may well have been an own goal, but at least that draw at Bristol City did halt the run of 6 losing away matches. But it was next up a trip to the Stadium of Light against promotion favourites Sunderland, and they thought they'd got an early lead, but the early effort from the men from Sunderland was cancelled out by the referee on the night. Offside, that one was adjudged. The match was always going to be a difficult game for the visitors, but they did have their chances during the 90 minutes, and Sunderland defence were pleased to see this one cleared to safety. Sunderland, though, did take the lead on 33 minutes as Andy Linnigan was adjudged to have given away a penalty there and received a yellow card as well as punishment. 33 minutes, Scott stepped up, 1-0 Sunderland. And a mistake on the defender's part. That time Saji Burton let in Daniel Dicchio on 89 minutes to complete the victory for the men from the Stadium of Light, and a disappointing night in the northeast for Palace. Queen's Park Rangers at home next up, and from close range it was Simon Roger who scored for the Eagles. But Rangers were soon level in this London derby on 74 minutes as Stainer scored for the R's. Off to the Manor on Boxing Day, and Craig Foster gets the opening goal for Palace. Dean Wendas equalises for the U's on 68 minutes, but it was not going to dampen Palace's Christmas cheer as Clinton Morrison was on hand right on the goal line to put Palace 2-1 ahead. And the victory was sealed as Lee Bradbury was brought down in the closing minutes. The referee pointed to the spot. And the ball was converted into the back of the net. No trouble at all there for the striker, and it completed a happy Boxing Day for Palace, 3-1 victors. A couple of days later, it was West Bromwich Albion at home, and Clinton Morrison was once again on the score sheet. It was disappointing though to see Kevin Miller throw the ball straight at Lee Hughes to give West Brom an equaliser. League action finished for another year onto the FA Cup, and Newcastle United away. It was going to be tough, but were Palace going to be given a lucky early break? Yes, they were, as referee Mike Reed sent off Shay Given in the Newcastle goal. And then even better news for Palace as they took a shock lead. The cross coming over, and there was Lee Bradbury to head Palace on the FA Cup road to Wembley. Morrison's cross from the right, and Lee Bradbury making no mistake. But unfortunately it was not to be for Terry Venable's side. Gary Speed levelling up. And then Newcastle were to seal the win on the afternoon thanks to this effort from a certain Alan Shearer. And Newcastle, of course, went on to Wembley. Palace went on to play Bolton Wanderers, and Bob Taylor gave Palace a dreadful start after just 3 minutes in this live Sky game. And then on 26 minutes, Johansson made it 2-0. And then in what proved to be Terry Venable's final game as Palace manager, he saw Jensen completing the victory for Bolton as they wandered into a 3-goal lead after just 33 minutes. And even that effort from Simon Roger couldn't quite give Palace some consolation on the afternoon. Stockport County at home, first home game in January, and Brett Angel gave County a 4th minute lead. And he was on hand again on 23 minutes to extend the visitors' lead. Palace did come back into it though. Morrison latching on to the head down from Lombardo. 2-1 to Stockport County, and Lombardo was involved again with this free kick, and as the ball came over, it was Fanzi High who headed into the back of the net to give Palace a share of the points. Steve Coppell's first game back as manager, and it was a 1-goal lead early on, courtesy of that David Tuttle effort. Palace certainly did deserve something on the night. They weren't to get it though, because Westwood made the scores level on 75 minutes. And with just 3 minutes remaining, the referee adjudged there that Kevin Miller had committed the foul. Palace's luck still hadn't turned, and Peter Beagrie stepped up to put the penalty into the back of the net. Harsh luck that in Steve Coppell's first game back as manager, because they certainly did deserve something out of the evening. And further disappointment for Steve Coppell and his side on the evening, because Sunji High saw red. Final game of Tranmere in January, and the lead was given to the Rovers from Lee Jones on the half an hour. Clinton Morrison's cross though was converted at the near post by Lee Bradbury. Good work from Morrison, a good cross, and that near post header putting Palace back on level terms. Palace though were soon to see themselves behind and go into the break just a minute before, 44 minutes, and Graham Allen put Tranmere Rovers back in the lead. And a disappointing afternoon was completed on 70 minutes as Scott Taylor sealed the points. Birmingham City at home next up for Palace and Steve Coppell's new reign as Eagles manager, and he was to see Palace go behind as the referee adjudged that Birmingham City should have a penalty for that foul, and Paul Furlong stepped up on 49 minutes to put Trevor Francis' side into the lead. And the mix-up in the Birmingham defence gave Stephen Evans on as a substitute an opportunity to make the headlines in his first appearance in an Eagles shirt. Crewe Alexandra next up, and another goal for Clinton Morrison. Dario Gradi's men, though, were level into the second half. Dave Walton's effort on 62 minutes, giving Crewe a share of the points. Next, it was a trip to the Potteries as Palace took on Port Vale, and Alan Tankard gave Port Vale the winner on 40 minutes. Barnsley were the next visitors to Selhurst Park. Good exchange of passes. They're giving Hayden Mullins the chance to slot the ball home. And that Mullins goal was enough to give Palace the victory. Good exchange of passes just outside the box, and there was Mullins coolly slotting the ball past the Tykes keeper. And Morrison frustrated there that he couldn't extend Palace's lead. They had plenty of chances in the second half that they dominated. Sun Shi Hai crossing there, and a good save denied his Chinese counterpart. Palace certainly not short on chances in that game, and Steve Coppell, though, delighted with the 3 points at the end of the afternoon, even if the chances weren't converted. Sheffield United away, and what a superb start for the evening for Palace and for Yugoslavian defender Goran Petric with that 30-yard effort. But the victory was denied late on as Sheffield United equalised right on time through Morris on 90 minutes. Another visit to Gigg Lane after all the Worthington Cup encounters earlier in the season, and Lee Bradbury going close, but indeed the game finishing goalless. A trip from the men from East Anglia, Ipswich Town next up at home. David Johnson giving them the lead after 9 minutes. Palace soon back on level terms there, though, with a good, powerful header from close range. And once again, the scorer for the Eagles was Hayden Mullins. He certainly got a number of goals for the Eagles last season, whether playing in midfield or in his sweeper's role. And Palace were thankful to that effort against Ipswich Town. It was a match that Palace eventually won on the evening. This was the second goal coming there after good effort saved from Fan Zhi Hai, and there was Clinton Morrison to put the ball into the back of the net. Clinton has already hit the headlines at reserve and youth team level with his goal-scoring feats, and season 98-99 was certainly one that he will remember, and that opportunity typical of so many that he took during last campaign. Credit to Fanzi High, he did well, but good save from the keeper, but Clinton was there to give Palace the lead. Ipswich did keep going though on the night, as they are still battling for that end of season playoff place, and brought the scores level on 63 minutes through Jamie Clapham. But Palace did seal the victory. And regain the lead late on in the match. Andy Linnigan putting the ball forward, a head-on from Fancy High, and there was that man Morrison again to give Palace a 3-2 victory. It was a match that Palace always looked capable of taking maximum points, and Steve Coppell delighted with Morrison's contribution on the night, and certainly delighted that he was there to connect with the head-on from Sunshee High, and there was Morrison to slot in the winner. A trip to the south coast next, and a mistake by the Pompey keeper let in ex-Pompey star Lee Bradbury to give Palace the lead. Palace looked like they were going to hold on for a famous victory against Portsmouth, but it was not to be, as Portsmouth continued to press forward. They were denied there by an excellent save from Kevin Miller. Fancy High, he went close here as he put Morrison in, but that was probably their best chance of the second half for Palace, and could well have sealed the victory. But with the clock counting down, it was Guy Whittingham who got in there to give Portsmouth a share of the points. Grimsby Town at home next, and Grimsby took a surprise lead on just 11 minutes through Groves. But Palace did come back well to get all 3 points in a 3-1 victory. This effort there from Lee Bradbury saved well, and Morrison was on hand to continue his good form. Goal number 2 of the match for the young striker put Palace into the lead. And Hayden Mullins completed Palace's victory against Town. Crystal Palace 3, Grimsby 1. The final game of March at Selhurst Park, and it was this long-range effort from Fancy High which gave Palace all 3 points. Well, after all the problems which hit the club in April, going into administration, then going into this game at Norwich City with a very young side, Dean Austin's goal was the shock result of the afternoon, a 1-0 victory for Palace and Steve Coppell's very young side, with many players, of course, making their debut on the afternoon. It was a victory to savour, and a real credit to Steve Coppell's side, and they were thankful to see that late effort from Norwich go just wide to give them all 3 points. Back to Selhurst Park and the Bank Holiday Monday clash with league leaders Sunderland. A large following from the north-east had seen the Palace side up at the Stadium of Light just a few weeks ago, but this was a different Palace side, full of fight and spirit and plenty of confidence now. Palace would have been delighted to get anything out of the game against the league leaders, and it was looking a bit doubtful after just 23 minutes as Phillips headed past Kevin Miller to give the men from the north-east the lead. It was no surprise, and were Sunderland going to go on to complete promotion. But Palace came back well throughout the whole match, and a capacity crowd at Selhurst Park were delighted to see them get a share of the points. This is Fancy High just outside the box, finding his Chinese counterpart Sunshee High, and it was once again Clinton Morrison who gave Palace a share of the points. A surprise 1-1 draw to many maybe, but Palace were always confident that they would be able to get something out of this match in front of a good Selhurst Park crowd. Kevin Miller denying Sunderland there with a good save to deny them a chance of a late winner, but it would have been a little bit unjust if Palace hadn't taken a share of the points on this bank holiday encounter. The following Saturday it was a trip to Molineux, where Palace have a good record over recent years, and that good record continued with a goalless draw. Then the Eagles took on the Robins again on the 17th of April at Selhurst Park, which once again saw the return of ex-Eagle George Nadal. And it was his cross from the left which gave Ifianura a chance to put Swindon ahead after 52 minutes. It was a goal which gave them the lead and victory. Next up for Palace was a trip to promotion-chasing Watford. And an early goal from Micah Hyde set the tone for the afternoon at Vicarage Road. And the victory was completed with Tommy Mooney's close-range effort, to the delight of Graham Taylor. And Palace did get a late consolation goal, but even Leon Mackenzie's effort couldn't guide Palace on to take a share of the points. Huddersfield Town at home for Palace's final home game of the season, and what a surprise, Clinton Morrison on the score sheet to finish the Selhurst season for him on a high note. But unfortunately John Dyson on 34 minutes was on hand from close range to bring the scores level, and then from the spot on 41 minutes Marcus Stewart gave the men from Yorkshire the lead. Palace though did end the season on a home draw with a close range effort sealing the points, and once again it was Clinton Morrison who got the goal. Well, he may well have ended the Selhurst season on a good note, but Palace certainly didn't end their season on a good note. A match Queen's Park Rangers had to win, and Palace were beaten by 6-0. It was a Chris Kawomya hat-trick, to the delight of the home fans, that sealed their nationwide Division 1 future for another year. Palace were always second best in this encounter, and it was no surprise when they soon went 2-0 down early on, but they had further problems to contend with, as Fanzi Hai was adjudged to have pushed the referee on the afternoon. He said he was trying to get the ball. The referee was having none of that story, whichever language it was in, and he was shown the red card and given his marching orders straight away. But Chris Kawomya was on hand to complete the hat-trick and complete the early lead for Jerry Francis' side, 3-0. And Palace by this time were dead and buried. And they were soon further behind as ex-Eagle, something that Palace have had to suffer quite a few times this year, a former player scoring against them. It was this time Anthony Scully on 76 minutes. So Queen's Park Rangers' future in the nationwide Division 1 secure. Palace's season ending on a real low note. But they can take great credit from how they finished the season after all the problems that the club went through during the season. Well, that's the season. Now let's hear from some Palace personalities regarding season 98-99.
Jamie, let's just look back at last season. It wasn't the best season for Palace. How was it from your viewpoint?
As you said, it didn't go as well as planned. We were looking to being one of the 2 promotion spots, but fortunately didn't pan out that way. But towards the end of the season, with all the young lads coming in, they did a good job.
The start of this season, everyone was very enthusiastic. Terry Venables came in, he brought some new personnel with him, and also new players, of course. How do you think it all settled down?
Well, not as well as everybody thought. It was, so everyone was expecting big things when Terry Venables came in, but there was a lot of problems, in the boardroom, and it affected the players.
If you had to try and look back at the season and say what was a good game for you, I mean, were there high points? There must have been high points, surely, during that season. Yeah,
I mean, you look at the game against Norwich at home, we beat them, I think it was 5-1, and the players and everybody then thought that, we was going to be up there challenging, but unfortunately it just didn't pan out that way.
Now, when Steve took over again as manager, things weren't going particularly well, and he managed to turn it round. How did he instill the enthusiasm back into the players, that will to win?
I don't know. I think it's just that everyone has respect for Steve Coppell. You know, when he came back in, it was a lift. Everyone knew that what he could do and how good he was with previous teams. And you know, when we heard that he was coming back in to take the team, it was a big lift. And I think everyone wanted to do well for the club and Steve Coppell.
Well, Steve Coppell, you started last season as director of football. You had a manager, Terry Venables, and then it all changed, didn't it?
Yeah, I think everyone was swept along in a wave of enthusiasm. Premiership, here we come. It's easy to look back now and be sort of cynical and laugh about it, but you know, there were genuine feelings at the time. Mark had come in and everybody was just so upbeat about the coming season after the problems we had in the Premiership and sort of the way we wimped out of it, I suppose, the best way of describing it. To have a fresh feeling, everyone was looking forward to the new season, the new campaign.
So what changed everything? Was it the affairs off the pitch that started to get through and creep through and affect the players?
No, to be fair, I don't think anything really began to affect the players till sort of mid-December. I think then there was starting to be a few rumours and a few murmurings. I think they were beginning to affect Terry before then. I think he, you know, had come here on the false pretences in many ways, and monies was promised to him, and those monies were never delivered. So, you know, when you take over a club and someone says you've got so much to spend, you make plans, and then all of a sudden that money isn't available, so you have to readjust. And I think, you know, Terry did that, kept everything to himself, which was, you know, fair. But it began to get through to the players around about, as I say, mid-December, I would think.
But there was a chance when you went on that little run, just not long after you'd taken over, and we all thought just maybe there's an outside chance of getting to the playoffs. Did that ever cross your mind?
No, absolutely not. You know, everyone says I'm dour, but I like to think I'm just a realist. You know, when I've got a good team, I'll start trumpeting and saying we're a good team and we should do this. But we had young players making debuts. We had the siege mentality and everyone really stuck together, which helped us an awful lot at that time. We lost 5 players on transfer deadline day, good players, and yet the players who come in, the young boys, the more senior players, everyone lifted the game and we were picking up points regularly. So it was probably one of my best feelings looking back on that spell of games, knowing that in terms of management and dealing with the resources you've got, I felt it was one of my best periods of management.
Just looking back finally over last season, what is your overview of the season?
Just difficult to say. You know, I haven't sort of sat back and sort of tried to analyse the season. I got a wonderful warm feeling towards the end of the season, I must admit. You know, as I say, I felt we, everybody at the club really pulled tight, and in the circumstances it was a great compliment to everyone. Early on in the season, I don't regret the great feelings of optimism we had. You know, I think now looking back, Mark himself would be the first to say he should have been more guarded and just sit back a little bit more. But we went for it. We come out of it with credibility at the end, and now we've got to build on that credibility and have integrity. I think we want this club to be, mightn't be the best footballing team in the country, but everyone to look at it and say, well, yeah, it's a good club, and they've got good players and good people who work there.
And a good manager. Thanks, Steve.
I hope so. Thank you.